Something you said that was really interesting. I was just thinking about this. So you mentioned personal brand. I mean, you have actually, we've talked about this because we're doing the work, for my stuff. So would you say, because you said if branding is all about storytelling, is personal branding different to like a company branding? Do you have to look at it differently? Are there different factors that play into that? Because I was just thinking, I'm like, okay, personal and company, there might be some differences. What would you say?
100%. There's two completely different ball games. Like, I think a company brand, a corporate brand is like, that's not necessarily antiquated, but it is like the traditional way of going about it. And now more than ever, because we have so many startups, we have so many great entrepreneurs out there, like, and because we're in a completely social media world, personal brand is so important, and a lot of corporate brands begin as personal brands. So we can get into that in a second, but like the corporate brand strategy and structure, I mean, the whole architecture of a corporate brand works around the fact that you have an organization supporting this, meaning you have so many different elements that are living different things that make up the brand identity. There is the people, the leadership that is living the vision, and they're setting strategies. Then you have the operations that are making sure on a day-to-day level you're fulfilling your brand drivers, and you're using the appropriate tone of voice, and so there's a big system around making that brand alive, come alive every day. Whereas a personal brand, there's so much more fluidity in that. There's some level of authenticity, which right now people are really craving with the amount of content we all consume on a daily basis. So needing that authenticity and being able to tie to a person, to a face, rather than a big structure, makes personal branding so effective, like so much more impactful. And like, you think about like micro communities, and you think about how people are just looking for connection much more so than ever, and there's a very non-traditional mindset out there, especially in the Gen Z generation, where they don't fall into the traditional pathways because now they have more options than we've ever had. They have more options than our generation. I can't even think about our parents. So with having so many options, you also, as great as it is, you also want things to hold on to. And that's small communities, that's individuals who share your voice and vision, because the big guys get confusing. You don't know which brands to align to, and there's not an anarchist, but there is a bit of an anti-movement and everything right now. So so that's why personal brands are so different, because you can move like a person, but you have the power of a brand.
Okay, so would you say, from what I've taken from what you said, is a personal brand can do, if you have a strong personal brand, can do a lot of legwork for you when you start some kind of corporate brand. They could be like, this new company by this guy, but this guy has such a strong personal brand, so you have an easier, for people, it's a much easier or natural buy-in into your corporate brand. Or do you think a corporate brand builds up a personal brand, or what would you say for people to put more importance on, or is it completely arbitrary and different to whatever the situation is?
There's some level of being arbitrary, but like I think it's a push and pull. Like now that the concept of a personal brand is so prevalent, we're seeing how effective it can be. Like, even if I think about like big industries, if I think about fintech as it's coming up and stuff like that, there are individuals who have strong personal brands who become thought leaders in those industries. And that's where the companies that they're a part of, or the associations that they have, come to the top of those industries. It's like, because you buy into, if it's an emerging like industry or an emerging market or thought or school of thought, the people that are championing that and that are like breaking barriers or being a little bit louder than everyone else, you start to attach to, and so then they bring everything with it. Whereas like, if it's a new brand, without like much maybe validation, social proof,
Yeah.
then people struggle to attach. So that's where maybe the personal brand can be a bit more effective. But yeah, it's totally a push and pull. Like I said, the Nike like network effect, right? Like Nike has done an incredible job of leveraging individuals with their personal brands or micro communities with like their value systems to attach to and tap into, so that it's made Nike have so many personalities.
Yeah.
So I think brands now can't deny that you need them. It started with like the influencer effect, but
For
I
sure.
think that's dwindling a bit, because of course now you think about, people see it for, it being within the capitalist system, and to some level it's just a new way of advertising. But people that are out there every day genuinely speaking their truth, and saying something worth listening to, build really solid personal brands and can convert a lot of people to whatever they
want, right? Yeah. I think something that you said that was really interesting, that using the Nike example, that they've been able to tap into so many like micro communities and certain people as well, has cast, as coming back to what we were saying earlier, a much wider net. So you have so many different personalities and different buy-ins now that will buy into the Nike brand because of creating that kind of stuff. So is building is it building that these kind of communities is what each brand kind of aims to do, or to create this many personalities and buy-ins for them to become like, to engage with you or to start following you?
I know, totally depends on the scope and size and scale. So I think like we're having a really like a big moment for like niche brands, because again, with the Gen Z wanting to kind of break the trend or break the norm, there's a lot of smaller brands serving these subcultures that are killing it, because you own that market. So you don't have to be the Nike that's everywhere, and you can actually be really focused and tailored to one specific community and still do just as well, obviously in scale. So you don't need one or the other, but then it comes down to what you've set out to do. Like Nike is looking for a massive impact at a massive scale, and their strategies just have to change based on how people are moving today, and that means working with these smaller communities. And you can't put out a blanket campaign and expect and expect conversion in the same way, because we don't, as a society, we don't work the way we used to 20-30 years ago. People aren't all buying the same thing. We have so many little boutique shops and options, and e-commerce has changed the game. Accessibility is different, and people want to know more. They want to dig deeper. They want to believe in what they're buying. They want to feel a sense of belonging and purpose and all of that stuff. So when you're trying to deliver on depth, it doesn't happen at scale. And so Nike's had to adapt their strategy for that. But then you have these small players that are doing really well because they only do that.
Yeah. I think that's a very great point, and it's so interesting that the depth part that you were talking about, that depth at scale is very difficult to do, even for a company of the size of like Nike, for example. That's why you still have to tapping into these smaller communities and getting that penetration in there, and like getting that buy-in and creating the right messages for those kind of people, and then you can start to like scale it up from that. So kind of start small to go big. It sounds counterintuitive, especially for someone like them.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting. I never thought of it like that.